and welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy and I'm coming to you from eastern Nebraska where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Friday, April 21st, 2023. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoy this episode. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have crocheting and knitting to share with you all. You can find me online on Instagram at Noble Character Crafts. And you can also get in touch with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. Today I am wearing a shawl that I made a couple of years ago. This is called Danse Macabre by Boo Knits, and it's a great shawl to wear when the weather warms up a little bit because it's made out of lace weight yarn and it's also 100% cotton. So I remember it being a labor of love. It has, not only is it made out of lace weight, so that is a labor in and of itself, but then I also have all of these beads that are in the pattern attached to the shawl, which just gives it a really cool weight to the shawl with the beads in it. It just helps it kind of hang in a really neat way. I don't know. I really enjoy having this shawl for when the weather warms up a little bit. I knit it out of Knit Picks Curio in the tea rose colorway. So I love having this shawl. I have a few finished objects to share with you all today. The first is this baby blanket that I had started and shown on the last episode, and I have now finished it. So let's see. Last time I recorded, I had really just started it. I can't quite remember which stripe I was on, but probably somewhere around in this general area. I hadn't made very much progress on it yet. But this pattern is a free pattern by Attic 24. It's called the Cozy Stripe Blanket. And I crocheted this using some worsted weight yarn, 100% acrylic, all different, lots of different, as you can see, many different scraps I put into this blanket. And it will just be a baby blanket that I will add to my gifts that I keep on hand, and I will gift it whenever the appropriate time comes along that I need to gift a baby blanket. I just love having baby blankets on hand to gift to people as needed. So this is also another one of the objects off of my personal Make 9 list. So I think this is the 5th object that I have finished off of my Make 9 list. So that's great. I'm so pleased with that. And I really am happy with how this one turned out. This was such an enjoyable project to work on. It worked up so quickly, and the stitches are just super simple. It's just a combination of regular double crochet US terms for 2 rows and then 2 rows of the granny stitch. And you just alternate those and change colors every 2 rounds, or 2 rows, I mean. I used an H5mm hook for the entirety of the blanket, and I just really striped in the colors very randomly according to what I had. Some of the stripes, there's only one of the colors, and then others have several stripes using that, one particular color of yarn. But it's just really quite random. I mean, I tried to space out the colors as evenly as possible, but I was just, like I said, using lots of scraps, and so it's quite random in the way that I dispersed the colors. But I'm so happy with how it turned out. It turned out a little bit bigger, I think, for a baby blanket than what I normally go for. I should probably try to get a standard for the baby blankets that I make. I make a lot of baby blankets. I love making baby blankets. It's probably my favorite thing to make. But I always just, when I start a new blanket, a lot of times I just make a chain and I just kind of eyeball it and say, oh, that looks pretty good. I just kind of figure out, I don't have a standard of number of chains to start with because I typically use worsted weight for baby blankets. So I should figure out a standard. For this one, I started off with a chain of 120 stitches, And so I think probably next time, if I were to make even this pattern or another pattern, just starting with a random number of chains, I might try to go closer to 100 to maybe 110 stitches, somewhere around in there. I think would get a little bit better of a width, because this one just turned out, well, the measurements are 35 inches across by 40 inches long. So that doesn't sound too big, but I don't know, just looking at it, it seems rather large to me. But I really like it. It'll still be, I think, a great size, you know, wonderful size to throw on the floor and let a baby play on it, like a play mat type of thing. So hopefully this will be gifted to somebody that will really love and appreciate it. That's always the goal. But I'm super happy with this and how it turned out. And again, it was such a fun and easy pattern. I can definitely see myself making this pattern again because it was just so enjoyable. Super, super easy. It would be a very great pattern for a beginner crocheter to try, because the blog that Attic 24 posts this pattern on has picture tutorials and it goes through the pattern in great detail. Attic 24 is based out of the UK though, so it does have UK terms which are different than US terms, so that can be a little bit confusing, but I'm pretty sure she explains the difference between the terms on her blog as well. I think that's all I have to say for that one. Let me just double check. I did a total of 39 color stripes, 2 rows per stripe. And each color stripe took around, I tried to make sure I had at least 18 grams per stripe, and then that was plenty. So it worked well to be able to use lots of scraps for that. I still had some leftovers from that blanket, and I was gifted after my last episode. I had given away a couple of patterns by Leslie Alcock. She had gifted a couple of free patterns to the winners of the Make 9 2023 mail. And after I posted that video, then she offered to give me one of her patterns as well. So that was so kind of her. And I chose the Falling For You cowl, and I wanted to work it up right away. And so I did. And I love how this turned out. I think it's just such a beautiful pattern. So I used 4 of the colors that I had left over from that baby blanket to work up into this cowl, and I just love how it turned out. I think it's so pretty. This stitch is super, super easy. It's just a 4-row repeat, but only one of the rows has a pattern to it. So otherwise it's just super, super simple knitting in the round. And I absolutely loved working on this. It again is made with worsted weight yarn, 100% acrylic for this one, and I used the recommended needles, which were US 8 5mm needles. And I am planning to make this again. I already have some yarn set aside to make this again. I might go down in a needle size because I typically knit pretty loosely, and this does have quite a loose gauge, but it's not terrible. I mean, it's great. I mean, I'm happy with it, but I wonder if it might be a little bit more, just a nicer gauge if I were to go down to maybe a 7, a US 7, 4.5. I think I might try next time I make this, but it's just a really great cowl. It sits so nicely and it's so pretty and fun to use up some scraps of yarn again. I followed the pattern exactly for this one. It's written to use 4 different colors and to change the colors as I did. So I followed the pattern just as it is written for this one. But even in the pictures that she puts on her pattern page, she shows another one that has been striped with, I believe, with 5 colors. And the next one that I have planned to make using this pattern, I'm going to be striping in several different colors. So I'll be changing up how wide each stripe is, but I'm just really happy with how this turned out. So it has a 1x1 ribbing for a little bit at the beginning, and then you just go into this pattern, which I just love how it looks. It's so beautiful. I think it turned out really great. I'm very happy with it. So again, thank you so much, Leslie, for gifting me this beautiful pattern. It will not be the last time that I work it up. I'm so excited to work up another one. I'm not sure when I will do that, but it's in my lineup of things that I want to make in the future. I also finished this pair of socks that I was knitting. These are a pair of socks that I'm going to be gifting to a friend of a friend. And I am really, really happy with how they turned out. I think they're super cute. I used a Regia 4-ply yarn in the Gerbera colorway, which is, it's 75% virgin wool, 25% polyamide. I cast on 60 stitches using US 0.2mm needles. I did 2x1 ribbing for 25 rounds, and then just went into plain stockinette for the rest of the sock. I did a slip stitch heel flap and gusset, and then just knit plain for the rest of the sock as well. Did a rounded toe and catch under the toes. The person that these are being gifted to has the same shoe size as me, so that was super easy to be able to make these to fit me. And I just did my standard basic sock pattern for these, so that worked up really well, and I love how they look. I usually, with self-striping yarn like this, I usually will put in a contrast heel, but the stripes on these are so, you know, the pattern is really, really spread out. As you can see, this red line, well, I guess this would be the best way to see the pattern. From here to here shows the color striping. I don't know, it's just such a long spread out pattern that I just decided to go along and continue using the same color for the heel flap, and I love how they turned out. I think they're great. So I will be gifting these, I'll be giving these to my friend Tina, who's then going to be gifting them to her friend named Faith. That's who these are going to. So I love how they worked up. They're so great. And of course they were super simple to work up as well. So it was a great project to have as an on-the-go project to work on when I didn't have the ability to concentrate on what I was making. Okay, on to my works in progress. The first is just an update on the Whisper cardigan that I had started crocheting. This is a beautiful pattern by Heidi May of the Velvet Acorn. And 2 episodes ago, I showed it to you and showed you that it was turning out too big. It was quite ruffling. When I laid it on my shoulders, it ruffles a lot. It doesn't sit flat around my shoulders. And last time I let you know that I had contacted Heidi to ask her if she had any advice for me. And last time I had recorded an episode, I had just emailed her, and so I hadn't even checked to see if she had emailed me back, but she actually emailed me back super quickly. She was very quick to respond both times that I emailed her. So that was so great. So I let her know my issues. I am meeting gauge with this pattern. I'm making the small/medium size, and it's just not turning out to fit very well. Like I said, it's ruffling a lot. Heidi suggested that I go ahead and block what I had made already, and so I did that. I wet blocked it for at least a half an hour and laid it flat to dry. I'll insert a picture though. Even when it was laying flat to dry, you can see that it has quite a spiraled look to it. My experience with making sweaters, I believe this would be considered a rounded yoke. I'm sure it would be. It should lay in a perfect circle at this stage, and this one does not. It has to be wrapped in kind of a spiral, which I think is evidence of there being way too many stitches. Well, I think so. That's just my experience. But anyway, I could be wrong. I don't know. But anyway, I blocked it, and it did not seem to make a difference with the way that it fits. I don't really want to take my shawl off to show you, but it's still fitting the exact same way as it did prior to blocking it. So I again emailed Heidi and let her know. She asked me to send her some pictures, so I did that. I took some pictures of me having it over my shoulders like this. Again, you can't really get a very good idea with the shawl underneath, but you can still see that it's ruffling here. And probably around the back too. Can you see? Yeah, it's definitely still ruffling quite a bit. And so I sent her pictures and asked her what more advice did she have, and she suggested that I go down a needle size. Now I've already gone down a needle size from what is recommended in order to meet gauge. I forget what the recommended hook size is, but I went down and am using a G 4mm hook. I think the recommended is an H 5mm hook for the majority of it. The ribbing is done on a smaller hook, but I went down to a 4mm hook in order to meet gauge. She suggested that I try going down another hook size in order to see if it would work out better for me. But I just don't think I'm going to do that because it just seems to be quite, like, I feel like I'm kind of shooting into the dark because I've already met gauge and it's not working out. So I don't really understand how going down another hook size is going to help because then I wouldn't be meeting gauge. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be the best solution for me. I don't know. If I wrap it around so that it does lay flat, I have, I think, 20 extra stitches. I think that's what it was when I counted. And that's a lot. So I don't know. I've just decided not to make this cardigan. Unfortunately, I really love the design. I think it's such a pretty design. I would love to have this cardigan in my wardrobe, but it's just not working out for me. And I kind of feel unmotivated to work hard enough to make it work for me. I don't know. I just don't want to put that much effort into it. It's just not something that I really want to do. So I've decided to abandon this project, unfortunately, but anyway, I'm excited to make this yarn into something someday. I don't know when, but anyway, this yarn is by Knit Picks. It's on their Wool of the Andes sport weight, and it's in the color Pampas Heather, and it's so beautiful. I really love this yarn, and I would love to have a cardigan in this yarn someday. I had originally bought this yarn to make it into a colorwork sweater, not a cardigan, but a pullover. But now that I've started this cardigan, I have the vision of having a cardigan in this colorway, and I think it would be really nice to have a cardigan in this light green earthy colorway. So I probably will someday down the road, but for now this is getting frogged, and it's another project from my Make 9 board, so I won't be completing my Make 9 board, but oh well, that's okay. On to a work in progress that is working out a little bit better for me. This one's being held in a project bag that I sewed myself. And this is the Felix cardigan, a design by Amy Christoffers of Savory Knitting. I started this back in February and have had a few stops and starts, but it is going really well right now. Last time I recorded, I had split for the sleeves and I had put the body on hold, and I was starting to knit the sleeves, and I have finished both sleeves. So that is great. Got both of the sleeves done. I did do them differently than what the pattern calls for. I didn't do any decreases through the arm. I just knit straight, and then once I got to the length that I wanted, I did one row of knit one, then knit two together all the way around. So I reduced my stitches quite a bit pretty quickly, and then I just did 1 by 1 ribbing for 10 rounds, which again is different than the pattern called for. I think it called for a longer ribbing section. And then I did a tubular bind off, a sewn tubular bind off, which is called for in the pattern. The yarn that I'm using is by Ulltex. It's called Kerry Tweed. It's color number 7. And it is 15% kid mohair, 15% mohair, 40% acrylic, and 30% wool. And it was gifted to me by a viewer of this podcast. And I am really happy with how this is working up. I'm using US 9 5.5 millimeter needles, And I have a marker on here that my cousin Allie made, a cute little cactus. And that's marking where I had left off with the body. And so now I'm back to knitting the body, and I've made a few more inches of progress on the body. The pattern calls for you to knit for 10 inches from the underarm. And I haven't measured lately, but it looks like I have maybe 7 inches so far would be my guess. So not too much more really to do even on the body here. And then I'll just have the ribbing to do, you know, the bottom ribbing and then the button bands and the neck ribbing and everything. So it shouldn't take me too much longer to work on this sweater. I think most people work up the Felix cardigan or the Felix pullover really, really quickly, and it's taken me a couple of months already, but that's okay. But anyway, I'm hoping that it won't take me too much longer to finish this one up. I can maybe try it on. I only have 2 50-gram skeins left, so I'm kind of playing a bit of yarn chicken with this sweater. I did make the sleeves quite long, so at worst case scenario, I could rip the sleeves back a little because they do go, you know, they're quite lengthy, which I love, but I wouldn't have to have that much length if I had to get more yarn in order to make the ribbing or something. I wish I knew how much I would need for the ribbing so that I could knit it as long as possible, but I really don't need it to be terribly long anyway. In fact, it's already kind of down to my natural waist. So I think I'll just go ahead and knit up the second to last 50-gram skein for the body, including the ribbing, so that I can have one full skein for the other ribbing, which I'm sure will be more than enough. Maybe I won't even do that because I don't really want this to be super long. I want it to hit more at my maybe a little bit longer than my natural waist. I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, it's coming along well, and it's super cozy, and I'm happy with how it's turning out. Oh, I'm making the smallest size that the pattern comes in, and I am needing gauge for this one. So I had originally started making this using the second size, which would have been the recommended size for my bust circumference, but I wanted a closer fitting garment. So I decided to rip back and go down to the smallest size. So anyway, this is coming along well. It's super easy at this point. Also, this is a really easy project because it's just stockinette knitting right now, so that's great. I have signed up for a test knit that I am super excited about, and that starts on Monday. And I would love it if I could get this project done quickly so that I don't have 2 sweaters on the go. Although it would be kind of nice to have this one as a mindless project, but I do just kind of want to get this one done before I start the next sweater, and I'll start another pair of simple socks or something for a mindless project. I think that would be better. I would also really love it if I could get this next project done very quickly, which I'm sure I will because I'm very close to the end of this project too. This is being held in a bag that I received in a swap several years ago. I love it so much. It's so cute and perfect for socks. And in here are my April Felici, Knit Picks Felici socks. I have mentioned that this year I am trying to work through lots of my Knit Picks Felici stash. And so I have planned to use a different colorway of Knit Picks Felici that I have in my stash. One colorway per month. I have it planned out. So this is the colorway that I have chosen for the month of April. It is called Base Jump. Knit Picks Felici is fingering weight, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and the pattern that I am knitting is called Cable Ridge Socks by Litton of Crazy Sock Lady Designs. And I'm super happy with how these are turning out. I am making the medium size, 64 stitches. It has 1x1 twisted ribbing. I did that for 18 rounds until the color striping changed and then worked into the body of the sock. I have figured that it works best for my preference if I do 10 color stripes for the leg using the Knit Picks Felici before I do the heel flap. So that's what I did. The heels are worked up using some scraps of Sweet Mountain Crafts yarn that Carista gifted to me several years ago. This is in the summer snow cone colorway, and my son helped me pick out which color to put into these socks, and we agreed that this was the best color pop that kind of matched but gave a bit of a contrast as well to this colorway. So I really like how those turned out. It's a slip stitch heel flap again. Again, I'm using US 2mm needles, and I am now just working through the foot, and in a few more rounds I will start adding that slip stitch heel, or the slip stitch detail that I add onto the balls of the bottom of my socks that I make for myself. So I will be doing that in just a few more rounds. I think 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3 more regular rounds, and then I'll start doing the slip stitch part on the ball of my foot. I do that for the last 30 rounds prior to the toe decreases. So that is working up really well. I'm super happy with these. Now I have mixed feelings about the pattern matched with color striping yarn, just because I normally, when I'm making my self-striping yarn socks, if I come to some purl bumps, I will knit them typically. But with this Cable Ridge pattern, I love it. I love the texture of this sock so much, but I didn't want to disturb the pattern when I got to the color changes. So there's a couple of rows where there's these little purl bumps, which it's okay, but it's probably not my preference to have those. I think it looks a lot neater when I don't get those purl bumps, but I just decided to go with it because I didn't want to mess up the pattern, and I thought it would look too strange if I messed up the pattern in order to not have those purl bumps, because that's just part of this beautiful pattern. I love it so much, but I don't know if it was the best match to put color striping or self-striping yarn with this pattern. But you know, you try things out and that's how you learn from them. But I just really love this pattern. It even has this awesome cabling texture and purl texture on the back of the sock, on the back of the leg. I love it. I think the pattern is so beautiful, and it would be great to use with, you know, a tonal or even a semi-tonal or even a variegated yarn probably, but I don't know if self-striping is the best choice to match with this pattern. But they're still cool. I still love them. Anyway, oh, this is a marker this was gifted to me from Tracy of Grizzly Knits. That's marking where I was the last time I showed these socks off, and I should be able to finish them up in the next couple of days. So I'm very excited about that. They're great. I love them. They're so squishy and wonderful. I like them a lot. Okay, my next work in progress is one of my Scrappy blankets that I haven't shown off in a couple of episodes. And I haven't made a huge ton of progress on this blanket, but I have made a bit of progress. This is my garter stitch blanket that I am knitting using up tons of just fingering weight yarn held double. So here it is. I think it's so awesome. I love this blanket so much. It's just a treat to be able to work on it. I think it is so pretty. I love how these colors, or just how it looks with all of these different colors marled together. So for this blanket, I was inspired after watching Amber of A Lovely Yarn. She had started a blanket very similar to this one, and I basically copied her. She had cast on 240 stitches, and so that's what I did. She's also holding fingering weight double, but she's using a bare yarn for one of her colorways and then only having one of the colors be scraps. But I decided just to use two. I'm using complete scraps, so I'm holding two scraps together to get quite a marled look, which I just love how it's turning out so much. I also decided to add an I-cord edging. So for the last 3 stitches of every row, I am slipping those with my yarn held in front to get this nice I-cord edging. I'm using US 8 5mm needles. All of the needles that I use are typically Chaogu red lace. And like I said, this is such a treat to work on. It's really kind of like, I use it as just a treat. It's like a reward for you know, if I'm trying to get something done, if I have for example, I'm not working on this until I get my sweater and my socks done, the cardigan and the socks done. I've decided to put this aside until I get those done, and then this will be kind of a treat when I get those goals met. Anyway, I have another progress keeper on this project that is from Tracy of Grizzly Knits. It's a sweet little bunny rabbit with some stones, and that is marking where I was the last time I showed this off. So like I said, I haven't made a ton of progress, but a little bit, and I just thought I would share it again because it's just so lovely. I absolutely love this project. It works so great to use up lots of little scraps. So the scraps that I am putting into this blanket are, I do it by weight. So my scraps that weigh between 3 to 20 or less than 20 grams go into this blanket. And then anything that's less than 3 grams goes into my granny stripe blanket, and anything more than 20 grams I save to put into socks. If it's sock yarn. If it's not suitable for socks and it's over 20 grams, I'll also put it in here in this project. And then I've also put in some self-striping yarn that wouldn't probably work great for heels and toes, you know, because it would just be kind of odd to match that to another sock yarn. So I have put a few self-striping yarns in here as well. I just love it though. It's so much fun. So pretty. I don't think you can go wrong. It's just, no matter what colors you put together, I think it turns out super cool. It is outgrowing this beautiful basket that my friend Tina gifted to me. It also has a lid, but it's holding some socks that I've knit. I'm kind of keeping all of the Knit Picks Felici socks set aside for the year until I have them all done before I start wearing them. Anyway, I have the lid for this basket is holding my finished socks. Anyway, this beautiful basket that Tina gave me, we found it at a thrift store and she bought it for me. The blanket is outgrowing this, unfortunately. I mean, I'm glad it's getting bigger, but I really love this basket, but it won't fit in there anymore. So I'm probably going to need to move this project to a bigger bag or something like that. All right, my last work in progress is a new project that I just started quite randomly. I hadn't planned to make this project, but I had still some leftovers from the other baby blanket that I finished, as well as the, I had, I guess, just this one green colored skein of yarn from the green and gray blanket that I showed off on my last episode, the other baby blanket that I had finished. Anyway, I have just a few yarns and I've measured them all out and done a lot of math and calculations to figure out that I can make another baby blanket using some granny squares, and so that's what I've started. And I am just going to be doing a simple granny square baby blanket. And as you can see, all of the squares are going to be matching, and I'm going to do 6 across and 6 down. So it'll be a 6 by 6 squared blanket. And then it won't be too terribly big. As you can see, it's quite little at this point. So I have quite a bit of this border color, and I think I'll have plenty of that to make a, pretty good size border around it, just to make it a little bit bigger. But I just made one square and I measured how much yarn it took to make one square, because I have very little of this blue color and then a little bit more of this darker brown color. So I wanted to make sure that I could make enough squares using the yarn that I had, and this is what I figured that I could do, and I really love how it's working up. I am again using an H 5mm hook for this blanket. I am joining the squares as I go this time. So, you know, joining them with a slip stitch to the adjacent square as I'm crocheting them. But otherwise it's just a super simple granny square. I'm not following any pattern. I'm just making a simple granny square. I do, whenever I make a granny square, most typically anyway, I will flip my square over for every round to help it be more squared. If you don't flip every other row or round, your square can kind of skew and not be completely square. So I do that every time I start, this is on the right side and this is the wrong side, right side, wrong side, right side, if that makes sense. So every other round I'm flipping my square over. That really helps it to have more of a square shape rather than getting a skewed, twisted type square. Anyway, so this is the width of it. I have 2 rows done. I have 4 more to go, and then I will do a border around this blanket as well. But again, I'm putting this one on hold as well until I finish my socks and my cardigan. That's my plan anyway. We'll see if I stick to it. Like I said, I'm starting a test knit on Monday, so I will have more information about that next time I record an episode. I'm super excited about that. And I may start that before I finish my other projects, but I would like to get those as near to done as possible before I start that test knit. But those are all of the projects that I have to share with you all today. I hope that you really enjoyed what I had to share with you today, and I hope that you all are doing really well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great couple of weeks until I record again. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.